Well, welcome to the Collab team. This is awesome because I'm like, hey, no problem. I'll take tomorrow's presentation. Taryn, could you start it for me? And then he gets in here and he's like, awesome. And now I get to dance. Awesome. I'll dance until Aaron gets in here. So Taryn, thanks for having fancy footwork. Um, Recruiting is something that we do. We get hit up to do recruiting. The more we've been doing it, and it's such an honor to me when people will refer to us work. So lately I've been getting tagged a bunch of places of Aaron's team is the best at this. Collab team does this great on Facebook or like different spots or on social. And I'm like, oh, actually, I'm not a recruiting agency. Like we don't do recruiting. Because usually a typical recruiting agency gets a percentage, right? Like that's always the kind of bite you in the ass a little bit for me with recruiting agencies is you pay them to do the work and then you pay them for everything that they find for you for like the first year of that person that while they're on your team. So for me, that's just not my business model. We don't do recruiting like that. The way that we do it is we have a high ticket retainer, high level retainer with Rainmaker, with Kimberly's team. So as Kimberly's team has needs that they need to hire for, we're going to help her walk through the recruiting and hiring process, and we'll help her build out some of the assets. We'll help her to have things to take to her community if she wants to go to her community. We'll help her go to the community if she wants. And then once she says, "Hey, we've exhausted our community," then I feel like we have a whole SOP process of taking it outside of community, right? So people are going to know Rainmaker community better from Kimberly and Steven and the crew there than Aaron or Aaron's third party collab team coming in and starting to do a bunch of posting on their social media feeds and trying to get into groups and being raw, raw, raw. So for us, the part of it for clients like Kimberly is we'll help you with the assets. We'll help you with the brainstorming. Hey, let's develop the job description. If you don't have that yet, let's determine their roles and responsibilities. Let's determine, is there somebody that could be a temporary fit from the collab team? That's something the collab team does a lot of times, is cut the gap by putting one of our team in the middle of a team need. And then let's go out and find the ideal person to be seated in this and bring that person back. So that's the rhythm we're going to talk about today, of this process of recruiting and hiring and some of the steps that we've kind of developed in our system as we do that. So I'm just going to walk you through what a standard protocol is for how we do things. I have created these as shared assets, so I think I'm probably going to, that'll probably be the gift for this month's Ops Experts Club. Whalen of a good time. Is that a whale of a good time, Taryn? Um,
Yeah.
so I'll make that Asana template an asset that you can use on your own. That way, if you guys want to copy our technique, it's a free for all. This is just what we do.
Aaron,
So
before you dive into this, maybe could you give us a minute or two on what if you've never dealt with recruitment and you were mentioning like professional recruiters? What are they actually doing and charging for, and how do they get paid
of course,
if somebody does end up in that situation?
yeah. So there are great assets out there. I think Tim Francis has a business called Great Assistant that he does in league with Garrett Gunderson. I think that might be a joint project that they do together. There are places like that where they're a recruiting agency where, just like what Collab does for our higher level retainers, where we'll go and find somebody to fit a role. They already have a pool of people and a technique that they're using, so that if Kimberly was in that situation, wasn't on retainer with Collab team, could go and work with a recruiter, and they're going to help you suss out some of these details, and then they would go to market to go help you find those. Typically, you're going to pay them a fee up front. You clip into some sort of commitment with them. And then as they go and find those people for you, they'll help with the recruiting process of vetting them, making sure they know what they're doing, bringing them to you, doing some interviewing. I found that I actually think a lot of the things that we do are more thorough than some of the recruiting agencies I've seen. That's not to speak ill of Tim Francis. I think I haven't gone completely through everything they do, but I have seen what certain recruiters do, and I thought, they're charging you actually a lot to do that, and they actually are leaving a lot of that on you. I think that what we try and bring all of our clients is, especially those who are in retainer with us, is we want to take the work off of you. We don't want that just to live on your back. So we don't want to like help you brainstorm and just be like, hey, Kimberly, that was a great call. I hope you don't drown in all the stuff I just gave you 10 more deliverables to go and do on top of your normal stuff. Like that should be our role to carry. So I have seen that sometimes there could be a disconnect in that, is depending on what you're buying into, how much work are they committing to doing? That's always something that I'll ask them, because I found that vendors like that love tasking back to you as the client things that you can go do. And it's like, listen, I'm not looking for any more jobs, because I think that one of the biggest things I would say as you start hiring out, if you get in the right mindset of, um, yes, you need people, But sometimes as you hire people, it becomes more work at the beginning, right? Like, because you have all the onboarding, and then you have all that person's questions that they have to ask somebody, and guess who they're going to ask? You, because you hired them, right? And so it's like you had to do all that heavy lift at the beginning to prep the role. You had to do the heavy lift of going to find the role. Then you hire them in. You're like, thank God the weight is off me. No, actually the weight has just started, because now they're going to have a bunch of questions because they want to do their job well, which is what you want from them. So I think where Collab Team has tried to meet that is, if we put somebody in the gap, and then they can kind of hold the space, then when that hire does come in, then the hire leans on Collab Team to answer some of the questions. And then that way, the resident person that's doing the actual hiring from the internal team can task the Collab Team to work with this person, and then just meet the person in the filler, not carry the majority of the load. So I will say most recruiting agencies aren't going to do that, right? They're not going to get in the weeds. They're not going to try and help you with the load. All they're trying to find for you is somebody that matches your matrix. So for us, Collab Team uses Colby. I know that Rainmaker uses DISC. There's a lot of different people that use different things to determine like personality traits and how things are going to align with, is this person going to be a good match for the responsibilities in the role or who they're answering to? But I would just say that's probably where a recruiting agency is going to stop. They're going to go out and find good candidates, pull them against your personality finder, or they've got one that they're going to do something similar, and then say, here are your best candidates. God bless you. I hope that works out pretty well for you. And by the way, I want a percentage of all of their salary for the next year. So like if you just hired in somebody that cost you $100,000 as an organization, they want a percentage of that $100,000 for the entire year. And so like it's a big spend, because they charge you something at the beginning and then they get a percentage of everything on the back end. So I think, Taryn, does that answer that question? Did I go over that better this time?
Yeah, I've never dealt with recruiters, so I had no idea they actually charge a percentage of the pay too.
That's the business model of recruiting, is that's how they make the majority of their money, are those percentages, because that's just like passive income, right? They're not doing anything once you've got them in your camp, but once they're in your camp, they get paid on them for a year. So there's actually a lot of money to be made that way. I just don't feel like that's our business model. And there's a part of that that feels a little bit, I don't know. I don't like the feeling of that. I just feel like my job is to help Kimberly's company run well. I'd rather us hold the space, get somebody in, and then just have the feel goods of Kimberly saying, Collab Team is a badass organization that helps us do with the lift, found us somebody great. I know we found some really great people for people this last round. I know we did the same thing for Steve Harwood at Prime to find his EA. We did the same thing for Rohan Sheth at GrowRev to find his EA. We've done a bunch of searching for Prime for some of their key positions. We've done some researching for GrowRev for some of their key positions. We've done some Rainmaker stuff with them. So I think that we've gotten pretty old hat at this, and that's what led to this SOP. And so that's what I was going to share with you is here. Now, I can't claim any glory. Is the background noise too bad, Taryn? There's somebody that's doing lawn work, but my air conditioning is down, so the window's open. So tell me if it gets too loud.
Okay.
It's been 105 in Medford, no air conditioning. Let me tell you how sweet that's been. Another day, another dollar. So this is the SOP that we've developed around recruiting and hiring, and I'm going to walk you through some of the steps. There's different phases. If you're not familiar with looking at Asana, we use Asana for a lot of our SOPs. This is just a standard project template, and broken out into different segments. So there's the creation, there's the interview documents, there's the job posting phase, the post-interview phase, second interview phase, references, and then the final notify all applicants. So there's different phases in it as we walk through it. It's not a flannel though, it's a light cotton shirt. And I know, and I am wearing pants today too. I was wearing shorts yesterday though, but I have the widest legs. So you never get to see my legs. Everybody mocks my legs.
I like that you tried to show us your pants. Like, don't believe me?
And Daryl mocks my white legs all the time. Weird, Daryl's not on here. Did anybody take a dig at Daryl not being here?
No, I kind of left him alone. That's for you.
That is why my legs are white. That is true. Okay. So enough nonsense. Creating the job description. So this is the document where we start. Typically, these are some of the questions we'll always walk through. Like, what's the full job title? How many hours are required? What's the company mission? Communication hierarchy, expectations, requirements, preferred skills. That's something that we just want to make sure is in all of our job descriptions. And we have a template that we use when we're building that out. You would be surprised. I think, just so you guys know, I feel like operations is one of those rare things where I can walk into the room with some of the most powerful people, right? Some of the people that they're making millions of dollars, they're killing it, like doing what they do. And when you start talking to them about how operations is running for them, it's like they become like embarrassed. It's like they become ashamed to talk about what we're going to talk about next, right? It's like one of those things when they know like the back of the house is messy and they're like, bro, let's just be honest, like we suck at this, right? Like they all will give me that disclaimer. It's like no matter who I'm talking to, if their operations isn't solid. Now, we obviously Kimberly's a badass at what she does. That's not the situation with Rainmaker, but I will say majority of the people that I walk into the room with and start having the conversation with, they don't have solid operational systems. So they definitely don't have job descriptions. They definitely don't have a solid org chart. They definitely don't have a solid escalation model of how they're moving people up in their business. Like they became this instant success, start hiring their raving fans of their family or their loved ones, right? And just said, hey, I'm really busy and I'm stressed out. So could you help me with this? And just hands off a mess. They manage that mess. And so the funny thing is it starts iterationally with the people that are talking to me about needing help with their operations. Then I meet with their next person in line that helps operations, and they're like, I'm a little bit insecure to even talk about you. I don't even know that I'm the best one for you to talk to because I was just thrown into this. I just loved this person. And so I jumped in and I started managing their mess, but I don't know if I have the qualifications and I don't know if I have what it takes. But it's like, no, you've been doing it. You're a badass. Let's just take some other things. We've been under the hood of a lot of different people. Let's just take a smorgasbord of what's used for a bunch of different people and make your stuff really good, you know? And so that's, like that is literally Collab jam. If I could say like sum up Collab in one set of words, which is a lot of set of words right there, it's like a conglomeration. It's like Terrence Rock illustration. It's a conglomeration of a lot of different ideas. But I would say that's this, is that most people just don't have job descriptions. They haven't sussed out their org chart. They're not sure how escalation is supposed to work. So we usually will start with that there with them and then move on. So what happens then after we've kind of sussed that out with the person is the team creates the interview documents. So they start a drive for me. We use the G Suite Google Drive. That's going to include the job description. It also includes the template for the interview questions, and then they share the folder with me. So I'm going to show you what some of that looks like. So this is a standard job description that will help people create. This was for Prime around an executive assistant role. I don't know if this was the one I meant to share, but that's fine. This is like, it has all the right pieces. Usually we'll drop in the logo up at the top, what the role will be, the job description, talk to them about the mission, the team, the position summary, the key responsibilities that are held within that role, key performance indicators, KPIs, the qualifications we'd like to see them have to do the role, and then any team specific expectations. Those are things that typically we'll go through with folks to build out their job description. The example I'm going to give you guys today, though, is one that we did for GrowRev, because I think that it was the best set of sequencing that I had seen laid out, and I thought I could walk you guys through in a way that made sense. So I'm going to show you some of these assets listed here, including the template with interview questions and the folder. But essentially, as they're building out these interview documents, they're reviewing the job description for key questions. They make a copy of the interview template, which is what's included here inside of the folder. They include the company commission name where necessary, is what that says there. Standard industry pay scale research. This is one of the things I think we do, that's one of the best things that we do, is that we'll go through and we'll search out standard pay scale so that the company knows, because like that's the next question, right? You create a job description, and the first thing that the people are that you're talking to are like, well, what do you want to pay them? And the people that are hiring are like, I don't know, what do people usually get paid at this? You know, so then we've got experience from other like businesses oftentimes, but that's not always a good thing to use. So we'll go out on those 4 references: ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Glassdoor, Salary.com, and start doing a bunch of keyword searches to come up with things around what this role is being called. Because right, titles a lot of times can get weird. Do I call them the same person here? Kimberly and I have this conversation all the time. Like, am I an integrator? Am I a director of ops? Am I a COO? Am I like, there's a million different titles for every title that's out there. Taryn and I just created one for a tech, somebody that's managing tech, right? So are they like a tech manager? Are they like, we had all these different possibilities. So when you go and start doing these searches, we do a lot of key searches on certain responsibilities and job description titles to get to a spot where we understand what the industry is paying people. And then they review the second interview questions for me, which is awesome, because that means they're doing the whole Collab team job is, right? Create the job description, go to market with the job description, bring back first set of people that are saying, yes, I've raised my hand, I'm interested in this job. Vet through them. Are they really qualified? Are they really cream of the crop? Shake it down to the top 2 or 3 best candidates you've got, and then hand them off to Aaron to do second round interviews with the hiring decision maker. So that's, hey, Taco Thursday. Tell Dustin we say hey. So then myself and whoever's doing the hiring manager will then in fact be the one who joins me on the second interview. So what I ask my team to do is, hey, will you just run through the template and make sure the interview questions make sense for what we're hiring for in this job? So I'm going to take you on a little behind the scenes to see what some of this stuff looks like. So Drew built out, so an example would be Drew, the GrowRev guys wanted to hire for this account manager. They had actually already built out a job description and had already started going out there and trying to market for it. We're having a hard time finding traction. We're having a hard time assigning somebody on their team, right? People just don't even realize how much time it takes to find people and then vet people and then all the communication that comes around that, right? Because then active candidates are like, did I get the second interview? Hey, where are we at in the second interview process? Hey, I have this question. As I was doing some research on GrowRev, and then it's like, oh my gosh, the last thing I want to do is have a 5-string email conversation with a candidate. Like I'm interviewing 10, 15, 20 candidates. I mean, Drew's been through batches of, Drew and Stephanie are the people on my team that handle recruiting, has been through 15 or 20 applicants, and there's chatter that comes back from all of them. The last thing your hiring manager wants to do is deal with all that chatter. Where are they going to create that in their bandwidth? You know, so GrowRev had created this whole post and job description baseline. So we went to market with it, and Drew started soliciting people. What he will do, and as is listed here in this copy of the interview template, once we've got the job description and he's created the posting on LinkedIn, he then is going to take them through an interview standard. So post the job description, be sure Collab Team is the point of contact, right? Because whenever you post on LinkedIn, they're going to reply back to somebody, make sure that it's coming back to us. And then as applicants come back in, add their names and resumes to the drive. That's their, once they start posting. But once they start getting people actively in interview mode, they take them into this template. So this was an example of somebody that Drew had interviewed for a GrowRev position. So the position was for the, it says it on top, for the account manager, the candidate's name. The thing that I love about this format is that everything is here. So you've got the name of the candidate. Here's the resume. If you click on that, it's seated in the drive. Drew's got it ready for me. Interviewed by Drew Moody on this date. He's got the key questions he asked, highlighting his mine, because I'm going to come back in around for the second interview. So, but he's asked all these different things to this person. She's given him all these different answers all the way through. All of these are very specific to the job that he's asking for. All of this is stuff Drew crafted coming out of the job description. He gives them some expectations about the role, make sure she's okay with that, and then gives her expectation for the follow-up. Next follow-up will be Aaron and Jeff are going to be meeting with her at GrowRev. If she makes it to the next round, doesn't promise that to everybody, and then asked to send over references. That way I've got everything. Like if Drew tells me this person is ready, I'm good to go. Gives me what the candidate's follow-up questions were, and then Drew gives me his thoughts. So this is an A candidate from her proficiency in sharing ideas. She was high energy once she began explaining her thought process behind the method. She gets excited. I can see her body language. She was inspired with the work. English is her second language. However, I had no trouble understanding her. She did not hesitate to speak to me fluently. And then tells me if she has pay expectations. Now that's got to match up to the matrix, you know, of our reference. Like that tells me, is this person, or is that something I'm going to have to start the conversation with? Hey, I noticed your pay expectations. I just want to speak to this out of the gates. You're outside of it. Are you still wanting to do the second interview? You know, like I might send Drew back to ask some of those conversations. So from there, as we're going through this, Drew's created these different items for me. He's done his research, and then he's prepped me for the second interview. He posts it. He's done his interview. Now he's going to send me information. His information that he's sending me is, are they an A, B, or C candidate? A is second interview material. B is fallback material. C is not worth moving forward in the process. So as Drew begins to clear crop like dozens of applicants, he's sending me emails that look like this. So this is a message from Drew. on this gal that we're looking at now on our interview template we were just looking at. Here are my interview notes for today's session. She's an A candidate, and this is all the stuff that he dropped in for his interviewers' feedback. That gives me the ability to make a decision on, do I want to do a second interview with her? Which is great for me, because then I can click in on his link, which takes us to this this information here. I can read all of the stuff, and I can say, Drew, do me a favor. Let's set up second interview. Give her my link. I will have already checked with the hiring manager on what their availability is, and then we'll push out my link. We'll schedule a time, and then I'll get on the call with the hiring manager and this candidate. That's when we pull into our second interview question, our second interview style question. So same format, person interviewed by, the date it's done. I'll always drop my recordings in there in case Jeff wants to go back and show his boss. A lot of times he may not be the final decision maker, so you might want to go back and show them a video of the interview. And then I've got a set of questions that I'll always ask. Most of mine, we've already covered a lot of the technical skills. So a lot of this is going to be things like, it's just good to know where people are at in their life. Are you single? Are you married? Tell us a little about yourself. It kind of breaks down some of that. What I found is that people that interview a lot love to diatribe, like they love to get you on a monologue. They love to script talk what they've been prepared. I like getting them outside of that. Like, let's get them out. I want to see how you naturally work in a working environment. So tell us a little about yourself. Where are you located? Are you single? Or are you married? What stands out to you about GrowRev? That one right there. I think anybody that's doing interviews right now, just so you know, do a little study on the people you're going to be doing an interview with. I can't tell you how many people I've walked in this conversation. One lady I was interviewing for this actual position. She actually made it to second round. But what I found out is in the second round set of interviews, she used to do door-to-door sales. Well, door-to-door sales, think about people who've come to your door. They've got a script, right? And their key to their script is not to let you tell them no, right? So like her whole engagement was like, Drew thought she was the best thing since sliced bread, brought her to me. And as she's going, I'm like, this lady's coming off like a door-to-door salesman. And so I started poking at her a little bit, like trying to get her off of her script, which she did not like. Then when I asked her about GrowRev, I'm like, what are you so excited about GrowRev? And she says, I just think it's a great opportunity to help clients grow their revenue. And I'm like, okay, how? Like, what about GrowRev though, specifically as a company? And she's like, and I could tell now she hasn't done any research. She doesn't even know who GrowRev is. She saw a title. She's probably interviewing 10 times today. You know what I mean? And so, I have the second interviewer on the call with me, right? The hiring manager. And it was just such a bad experience. And then she asked us for twice the amount of what we were hiring at. So it was like terrible experience. But all those things said and done, ask them if they know about your company. That's a key one. Tell us about what you're doing currently. What are previous roles you feel like align you with this? Highlight a superpower of yours, and then something that you're not great at. Give me some of your vulnerable, because this tells me, are they going to work well with team? If people aren't able to come up with a vulnerability, that means to me, oh, you might think too much of yourself. If you can't tell me something that you're growing at, like, give me some vulnerable share here. It's good. All of us are growing at something. And I'll always let them, hey, do me a favor, jump in. Do me a favor. You can talk about either one. I'm going to ask you 2-part questions: highlight a superpower and give me a vulnerable spot, something you're still growing in. You can go first. Choose whichever one you want to go first. And that for me is, I'm gaming that. Like, I want to know, are they going to tell me about something they feel really good about, or something they may be vulnerable in? Like, because that tells me a little bit about their personality as well. So all of mine have more to do with like the person I'm interviewing more than their skill set. Savannah, do you have a question?
I was going to say, I also like the framing it as a vulnerability rather than, because going on like that scripted thing, like everyone gets asked, what's a mistake that you made in a previous position and what would you do differently? And so everyone already has that scenario like ready to go. Like they've already, and so vulnerability is more of like, you are literally asking them not for a mistake that they've made and rectified, but actually for like a personality flaw. Like, you are asking them to own up to a personality flaw and being real about that. And like, like we all have those, and it's going to come up when something is pressing. And so I love that key difference of like framing that up that way and making someone like think about that. Like, where are you vulnerable in the workplace? What is something that's going to bubble up once we get under pressure?
Good. Yeah. So anyway, those are mine, general info. Then I'll talk to you about the expectations of the role. Then I'll talk about the value of the business. And then I'll just kind of record, what are their questions for us? What are our questions for them? Down at the bottom in the middle of the template, this is where Drew will always share, or Stephanie will always share, what are the standards you're finding? Industry standard is this, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, salary. Some of the questions they found, are there benefits that we need to be considering? Are they able to work from home? Is there a tech stipend? Is it a PC or a Mac based company? Things that come up there. And then some of the, like GrowRev, they offer on-site parking. They offer medical and dental. They do meal prep and meals a couple of times a week for anybody that's there. They have a full bar open on Fridays, like a nice coffee machine. Some of those things come up when it's like, maybe that's when we're trying to like angle in towards, we're not going to pay you that, this is the range, right? We're not going to, if you come in and you say you want to make 80, well, we're already outside of it, but based on your performance indicators, they're going to be a profit share over this. This is kind of a sales-based company. So 7.5% profit over the base of this. So I think, and then I usually will drop in my follow-up thoughts because I'll usually do several of these, So for me, I really like Manasta. There were times where English was a little difficult to understand, maybe 3 to 5% of the time. Otherwise, she's very smart, capable, most qualified candidate up to date. For this one, it was a lot of sales. And I just felt like she had a very strong Indian accent. And sometimes the way that she spoke, I just thought, if you're trying to sell somebody, you don't want them to have to ask you, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? Whereas for me, it wasn't a big deal for me to ask her that. I'm super impressed. She speaks way more languages than I do, but if it's like a sales communication, mostly to North American people, that's going to be a pain point if we're not careful. So that's how that goes. She didn't make it to the final, so I didn't vet her references. And then back to this. Yeah, this just walks you through second interview, get time slots when Aaron and whoever is doing the interview is available, send an invitation out to the candidate. Once you have a time ready, use Aaron's Zoom and then watch the Loom. I think if I send them over some questions, I think there's follow-up questions. Sometimes I'll push back to them if I might Loom that out. And then after that, let's get some references. And then whether or not anything, this is really important to me, whether they get hired or not, they need to be notified. Like reach back out to them at the closing of the process. Hey, just so you know, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for going with us through the hiring process. We did make a decision. It wasn't you. We wish you all the best. Please stay tuned because that person may not have fit this role, but if you really liked them, they might fit a role downstream. And the way that you leave off with them, we all know there are things that have left a bad taste in our mouth. And then when somebody circles back around on us, you can be like, yeah, right. You shot me down the first time and you weren't even kind enough to let me know I didn't make the second vetting. No, I don't want to work for you. So just being really kind in the way that we tie things off with people. That's the long and the short of how this process goes. Are there questions or thoughts or things that any of you guys would like to add? And I know all of you guys have done a lot of this kind of stuff. Taryn, let's hear it.
So you mentioned under job posting, LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else you like to post? Is that your preferred posting platform? If it is, why? What are your thoughts around that?
That's great. I would say best, in my personal opinion, the best place that you can go to first is your community. I think that there are a lot of people that have started following your magnate, your leader or your leaders, like for Stephen and Chelsea. There are a couple, there are people that love Chelsea, that would love an opportunity to work with Chelsea, love opportunity to work with Stephen, and have a unique set of skills like Liam Neeson and Taken that could really work to your benefit. God, man, nobody even cracked a smile at Liam Neeson and Taken. I have a unique set of skills. Savannah's like, I smile. They love your person and maybe they're a great copywriter. That's what you're trying to hire for. They love your person and maybe they're really good at social media marketing. They love your person and they're good at operation. It's great when you can get a twofer because then like the very next thing, let's say you find somebody that's really great at copywriting. The first thing they're going to need is to master your person's voice to be able to write copy for them. So if they've already been following your person's voice, like the step to that next one is super fast. Also, if they already love your magnate, your main person, they want to make that person happy. They want to contribute to the success of the business. Like if I go get a job with Ford today, Ford is cool. I feel like I'm really good at my job, but I might slow walk the beginning to make sure I really understand how this whole thing works before I start running. But if I'm already in sync with my leader, like I'm already in sync with this person, like John Acuff is amazing. I love him. I love doing his projects. the thought of coming alongside of John Acuff made me so happy because I'd already read his books. I love the guy. I think he's amazing. He's inspiring. I can come alongside and do operations for him. And I want to make John happy. I want John to be happy with how I show up. Like there's so much credibility you can get out of that. But let's say you've sussed out your community, and it's just, you're not really finding anybody that fits the mold. LinkedIn, I think, is a great spot. They make posts really easy. You don't have to pay for it the first several that you post. And there are a lot of people that are on LinkedIn, and they make it very easy to share. So it can go viral pretty easy. So that's where we've experienced a lot of success in LinkedIn. Some of the downsides are you can only have a certain amount of posts up at any one point in time. Another downside that I found with LinkedIn is that you can't post from a company. You have to post as individuals, which is kind of a wonky way to do it, because sometimes that communication can start coming back to that individual, whether you wanted it to or not. Even if you've made it really clear on who you want candidates to apply to, they can start really hitting up this main person rather than coming to like me for Collab Team. So I think there are some downsides. LinkedIn is what we use. We have done a little bit with Indeed, but yeah, usually for me, it's community first and then LinkedIn.
And you think LinkedIn's great, probably more for the type of job too. Like,
yeah,
you might not go there for a level 1 customer support agent.
Yeah,
because those type of people might not even have a LinkedIn, but you definitely go there for a sales account manager or a marketing director.
Right. That's good. Yep.
So you've used Indeed also?
We have used Indeed, not extensively, but we have touched base with that. So I don't have as much an ability to speak to that. And in all honesty, I almost brought Drew and Stephanie into this because all this came from me in the beginning, but they've evolved it. Like Taryn, Taryn started on all of his tech through me, but Taryn has taken it so much further than anything I've ever done with tech. It's almost silly for me to talk about CRMs at this point because Taryn's so brilliant at it. Why would I ever talk about CRMs? And sometimes Taryn, I can see in his face, like we'll be on a group call and I'm taking lead and I'm saying something and I can see in his face, he's like, that's not actually true. I'm not actually going to say anything right now because I don't want to correct you in front of this group. And I'll always try and backpedal my way out of it to give it back to Taryn because really that's his brilliance. Drew and Stephanie have done a great job processing this out. They've done dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews now using this process. So their process is great. I almost brought them in, but I thought that's another person. I got to coordinate another Collab team member on here. So you guys get stuck with me. You get me. So I would say Stephanie's tried Indeed. I've never personally posted in Indeed.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Savannah had a question, but she got pulled away because she's got mom duty today. Savannah, you still have a question or
no? Baby's learning how to go from belly to back, and so she just like figured it out and then looked at me in horror like, I'm on my belly now, I don't know what to do. I was just gonna say kind of on the tone of LinkedIn, what Taryn said about LinkedIn like being the ideal spot of hiring certain individuals, just kind of thinking about like where your pool is. I was gonna mention that I used Facebook rolled out a couple years ago their own like hiring thing where people could submit resumes, and I just wanted to say I got the worst applicants from that method. Like, don't make it that easy for your people to apply, because even though it was that easy, they still didn't read directions. They still didn't read like where the job was located. Like it was such a big time waster. I interviewed like 4 people over the phone. And by the end of the phone call, it was like, oh, you're actually not even like available to work in this position the way that we want you to work in this position. Like, please go away.
It's tough. And I think too, especially like if there's ever a time you should show up well of that you are reading directions, it's probably when you're interviewing for something, right? Because it's like you couldn't even follow the directions. Taryn, you've done some of that though, right? Too, with tech hiring, where you'll ask them certain things with the intent of seeing who's paying attention and how well they're reading like tasks and how they're playing it all out. Yeah, maybe have you experienced, and I know there are a couple applicants that came in from the couple of the jobs you talked about, that you told me about, that you're like, it was just so clear, like this guy hadn't read the instructions and just took this a totally different way.
Yeah, I think that is a different part, maybe depending on the hire, if you get really close to hiring them, giving them a task to do. So I've helped out with that with different companies. They're trying to fill a role that I've temporarily filled in until they get hired. And they're like, okay, Taryn, what task can we give them as part of their like round 3 even? They're really great. Let's just see how they do. And so, yeah, I gave them a hard task. I threw in some loopholes just to see if they would respond or notice, or I basically, it's almost like giving somebody a task that can mostly be done, with leftovers and trying to determine, okay, are they going to give me a completed task, or are they going to say, well, it's mostly done, but here's the issues I found with the task you gave me. I was really trying to see how they could work through the problem and understand that I didn't give them a complete task.
Yeah, it's good. Taryn's a sneaky one, man. Don't try and pull wool over the eyes on Taryn. You will get nailed every time.